Hello everyone, welcome to the next round on Dead Dog Saloon. This time we have a Wraith and we have Silence versus Dead Future. The winner of this match will play against Gorilla in the finals, and the loser of this match will play for the third place spot against Ignorance. So we'll have to see how this plays out. We already have first survivor spotted at the very start of the game. Got Nervo on the chase versus Fancy. Fancy taking chase into the corner of the map here. I will also note that there is a ping difference between these two teams. We have an SA team versus an NA team, so that'll allow for some interesting hits, and as we know in Wraith sets, there can be a lot of those. That's going to be Fancy getting tagged as he makes his way over to the wagon for this first chase of the game. I am once again joined here by I Am Robot. Robot, how are you doing? Are you excited for some Wraith, and what do you think of this chase so far?
Yeah, I am excited to see some Wraith here. A little bit of a change. And, well, the chase has actually lasted a long time. We get a hit as well. I mean, we get a stun here onto Nervo while he was still close. So that stun lasted just a little bit longer. And one thing that I like to see, honestly, with when going against the Wraith is these standoffs at pallets, you know? We see them all the time, you know, people trying to outplay the other one with some mind games, so those are always fun to watch. And as we continue the chase here, well, finally down here for Fancy, but you know, a lot of resources were used, and we did have one generator completed. We saw Dino and Finesse doubling it, and Finesse also got a hit tank as well to make the chase last a little longer. But you know, the area here where the gen was completed and kind of by Gallows, you know, has, you know, some resources used, so that's gonna, I think, make a difference at the end. Wanted to ask you, Autumn, so we saw a lot of you know, gens completed when we saw the Cenobite games, you know, 4K1, 4K0. So do you think that's gonna be the case here as we see just another one generator completed? What do you think the count is going to be against the Wraith?
I mean, typically on these cross ping sets, you do see a lot of either high stages or 4Ks. 4K is extremely common in cross ping, but I will say Nervo's kind of struggling to get a grasp of these survivors here right now. Fancy had a really good first chase in that area, and while all the resources were used over there, it's important to note that there is no 3-gen on the Gallo side. So even though all of those resources were used, there's no gen set up there, so all of those pallets being broken didn't really amount to a whole lot here. Another thing worth mentioning though is that Finesse did give a free tag. That hit take didn't really get Fancy any more distance, so that was a free tag given from Dead Future. But even with that free tag given, I think they're still in a good spot. 2 gens, they didn't have a corrupt to deal with too. Nervo not bringing corrupt, basically betting on the fact that he's going to get a fast first chase, allowed for them to pressure the gens that they needed to pressure, and now Nervo doesn't have any sustainable gen setup to hold, which definitely does put him at a disadvantage here. We see another resource being used, so many resources flying by. It's a good thing these survivors are keeping up their pressure, because if you run out of resources and still have gens remaining, it can be very problematic. We do see Fancy finally going down. That's going to be the second hook onto Fancy. Nervo just going for the pickup, going for hook number 2. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another gen pop, or at least have just a few more high progress gens, as Nervo's not able to pressure all these survivors since there are 4 of them right now. He needs that tunnel out in order to do that, and these survivors are just doing a very good job splitting their pressure, not giving too many free tags, taking their distance, and just playing, basically forcing Nervo into a 1v1 with Fancy for this whole game.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. You know, Fancy has lasted quite a bit. You know, we've seen some tunnel outs previously where the survivor being off the hook, just not being able to last very long, but Fancy buying a little time for his team. And you know, Nervo, like you said, having a little bit of a hard time, I think, finalizing the chases. I think the first tag comes pretty quickly, but then the survivors of Dead Future are able to make the chases last. Like this time right here, you know, Nervo unable to get the tag before and having to break the pallet, and we see another generator completed, and we get the unhook as well with no tag onto the unhooking survivor. So now chases are gonna go to main, and this is something that I wanted to point out as well. So I honestly had not noticed that Corrupt was not in the game, and also Bamboozle is not there either. Now, of course, with Wraith able to, you know, vault fast without just by being cloaked. Oh wow, that was a good stun here by Fancy, with the residual manifest as well. So that's gonna blind here Nervo for a little bit. But you know those two perks, which are I would say a staple of for this map and even for this killer, not being used. You know, going for eruption and sloppy here. We'll see if those play a factor here. What do you think, Autumn? Do you think that's gonna make a difference if Chase is going to main?
Honestly, probably not a whole lot. A lot of good Wraith players have been adapting to the no bamboozle style to include more regression in their builds, and it has worked out in their favor because of just how much movement speed Wraith has at the main building. He can just prevent survivors from getting accurate loops out of it. Where you really want to be worried about, and I think this game was an insanely good showcase, is that bottom gallows area as well as this housing area. That's where all the really strong resources versus Wraith are. You can just use pallet after pallet, force them to break if you play them correctly, chain them together, and just waste a lot more time than you ever could at main building, since he can just catch up to you and you have no pallets on main. So I think this game is actually a really good showcase of where you want to take Chase versus Wraith on this map. Did Future doing a really good job at showing that. And I think Nervo's just struggling here, not able to get that tunnel out onto Fancy, and now just having to hold whatever gens he has remaining. Finding Finesse here, Finesse making his way over to main building, and as much as I say like those areas are the best place to take Chase, main still is a solid place. It's not going to be one where you can last forever, like versus some other killers where like, okay, like if you're chasing a 110 main, you can infinite vault that, you can shift tech the window and not have it be blocked, that kind of thing. With Wraith, you're eventually going to go down, but it is still some time waste, and yeah, bringing Bamboozle does cut that time waste down by quite a lot, so it's kind of more like what you value. Do you want stronger chases at main, or do you want more regression? And it seems like Nervo really went down the regression route, but unfortunately they just are not able to get the downs fast enough to make up for that, and not being able to get full value out of their regression perks here. We see Finesse getting tagged here, but that is the only injury active right now, and Nervo's gen setup, this is just not sustainable. You can work this straight gen and make main, you can work this gen over here and take distance away, as long as you're pre-leaving when he shows up and not giving too many free tags. Forcing Nervo to play for every single injury he goes for wastes a lot of time, and with 4 survivors being alive, you can just double both these gens, and there's not really a whole lot you can do. Like, this is a perfect example. Dino took Nervo so far away from the other generator just to get a tag. He can't even get a down from that. So now he has to go back up here, and now Dino can get reset, and they can just keep flip-flopping this back and forth for the entire rest of the game. The only way Nervo is going to be able to make anything out of this is if he gets an eruption down, which at that point, you're kind of at the mercy of the survivors making a mistake.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think, you know, when I see the builds for the killer, I like to try to get in the mind of the killer. It's like, what's the strategy? You know, like what are they going for? And I think with Ruin and Sloppy as a combination of perks, I feel like what Nervo was trying to go for was go for tags and then go bother the survivors to not allowing them to not allow them to progress the generators and let Ruin do a little bit of the work. But it seems like Nervo committed to the chases very early on, which, you know, I think it's also, you know, good, especially if you find someone fast, you want to get him down, especially with all the other survivors all running around the map. But I think since he was unable to do that, the combination of Ruin and Sloppy was not as successful as I think he wanted it to be. Now, of course, Ruin is gone now. Sloppy's gonna do a little bit of work here when Finesse is trying to get healed, but Eruption now is active, so maybe Nervo has another second strategy here, just getting those tags. We'll see if Nervo decides to commit here, but we see, like you mentioned, you know, Finesse is now is healed, so they're just resetting, and then playing for those or, you know, maybe a little bit slower on the progression of the generators. But we did see Jinxie go down here in a decent area for Nervo. We'll see if that allows him to put a little bit more pressure on the survivors.
Yeah, it looks like a bit of a miscommunication there on the hit take. Jinxie committing to dropping the pallet when there was a survivor there trying to get him out of that corner, and now this is where things can get a little shaky. This is like the first domino falling from the survivors making mistakes, but again, with 4 survivors alive, you have to wonder if that's really going to amount for much, as Nervo has to go interrupt this gen, and boom, unhook's already happened. I'm sure they're already resetting him, and then they're probably just going to go back and pressure that gen, and this gen has so much progress now, Nervo is going to struggle to be able to leave this area, and again, survivors can just keep taking distance off of their generators, and what do you do at that point except just commit very far away for a tag and allow these gens to just slowly build up progress? As long as these survivors don't get over eager, they don't get too aggressive and just keep playing it like they are now, they should be able to get out of this with low stages. And we do see Jinxie getting reset, and now we do see a tag happening here onto Fancy, but now Fancy taking all the way to Shack, and we'll have to see if Nervo wants to commit to this or not. It looks like Nervo going to be committing because he wants this eruption down, going all the way to this corner, but we still have this resource used up. Any means necessary did pick this up from earlier, and we still have resources down in this area, and just like the start of the game, we saw Fancy making good use of this. If Nervo can get this down in a timely manner, that's going to be the tunnel out, but considering we're not seeing any survivors around to help with hit take, and we are seeing that Fancy's doing fine, it doesn't seem like Nervo's going to be able to get this tunnel out in any timely manner, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the last gen getting finished very soon, as Nervo did commit a lot of efforts for not a whole lot to gain.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, now Nervo's gonna have to come all the way back here. Of course, Wraith has good mobility, right, when cloaked, but you know that, you know, this is how the survivors are gonna play. And Fancy, I want to point out that that tag, I'm sorry, that stun onto Nervo there had me with an OMG to myself, because with the ping difference, that was very ballsy for Fancy to go for that, because it could have easily been a hit for Nervo and a down, you know, which would have been pretty bad, like you said, with eruption, you know, that with the eruption that Nervo was trying to get. But now we see the strategy of the survivors here, trying to get a hit tank from Adam, and that is going to be the case. They have to kind of die away from this area, though. I think that Ace is going back to main, where they have a little bit of progress on that generator, but there's a pallet here, so never mind. You know, Nervo recognizing that, seeing that the progress on these generators is just way too much. But also, Autumn, something that I wanted to point out is the gen spread is very favorable for Dead Future, because Nervo has to come all the way over here, closer to the bottom of the map by Water Tower, to check on this generator, and then all the way across the street to go for the other one. So with the resets coming along as well, I think Nervo's going to be in a tough spot.
Yeah, time is definitely in favor of the survivors here too, especially when you consider the 8 kick regression limit, and with Eruption using up basically 2 each time, eventually he's going to run out of basically being able to use his perks, and he'll be left with just a single perk. And these survivors just need to waste a little bit more time, and it looks like they know that they can't have a long enough chase, so they're just going to play for the pallet save. And even though Fancy's dead on hook, as much as Nervo, it's probably killing Nervo inside, they want to pick that up, they want to get that kill. They know that as soon as they pick that up, the game is over. They need to play for more, because this result is going to be very difficult to match on Survivor side, as Dead Future just played this so well. We're finding the tap here out in the open, and Nervo's going to be getting the tag onto Jinxie. Fancy most likely getting picked up here, and Nervo probably feeling a little bit okay about the pressure that he's sustaining right now. Decent tags coming in, a little bit of pressure forcing the survivors away from their generators, but then the second you go over here, you know, your heart sinks. You're like, this gen is, you know, 80-90%. How do I stop this from popping? I need to get another eruption down. So he's probably looking for Jinxie right now, and it looks like he's going to find the reset over here. We do see 3 survivors, meaning only 1 survivor is going to be working on a gen, getting another tag here. All he needs is a down to prevent a generator from popping, and this is just a very stressful situation to be in if you're the killer, knowing that every second matters. Every tiny little second matters here, and time is on the survivor's side for as slow as they want to play it. And it looks like they're just fully committing to this gen, not putting too much pressure into the other gen. Finding Dino here. Now Dino is running towards the other generator, putting Nervo in an okay spot, but with all of the resets coming through again, each of these tags is not really meaning a whole lot, as these gens aren't regressing. They're not going to get any lower with the perk setup that Nervo has. There's no ruin in play anymore, and he's going to run out of kicks eventually. So this is not sustainable in the long run, and the survivors, knowing this, are just going to keep playing the exact same way they've been playing the whole time. And if someone comes in for the hit tick here, that's going to be not even eruption, but it looks like the hit tick does get messed up. That's going to be the eruption coming into play, and now Nervo can play for a pain res, and now this is a moment where Nervo can actually recover the current situation.
Yeah, you know, a lot happened here in just a few minutes, and Nervo here recovering, because this is okay. I thought he was gonna drop him. I was like, what's happening here? But yeah, so now that is going to repeat. You know, something that you pointed out that is very important is the amount of regression events that have happened on these generators here. We still have 1 more pain res, but depending on what happens, it might not even be used. You know, because Nervo might not be able to use it, because if the amount of gen regression events that happen on generators reaches 8, then the spikes are gonna come and block the generator, and no more regression allowed for that gen. So I think Nervo still has maybe like 2, I think, on that generator there by water tower inside one of the houses, and I would say maybe 3 on this one here by the street. So still not looking too bad for, I would say, for Nervo, especially with now all survivors injured. Now I don't know if he was able to get another, and so it doesn't seem like eruption is activating any of the generators. So this down here is not gonna accomplish much in terms of chain regression, but it will allow for Nervo to get just a bit tighter, just a tad bit more of pressure on the survivors.
Yeah, and I mentioned very early into this last gen scenario that Nervo is very much relying on the survivors making mistakes, and it seems like they have been making a few as this has been progressing, getting a little bit overeager, giving a little bit too many tags, and also just completely abandoning that main gen. That gen had so much progress before, they let it regress so far that now it's only around 30-40%. Losing all their pressure now and putting it all into a single generator is not going to help them. And now with Jinxie being dead, and now we're in the 3v1, we went from a situation where we had 2 gens at 70% and 4 survivors alive to now 2 gens under 40% and a survivor dead. And now we're looking at this is on the killer's favor. This is 4K1 now, and this just goes to show you how quickly things can change in a game like this. All it takes is just a few little mistakes that'll add up, and it'll hurt you in the long run. And we've been seeing that honestly a lot today from survivor side, where they have this really strong start and they just slowly let go of it. This has happened multiple times. It is very hard to keep that sustained pressure up on the survivor side when you have to communicate between 4 people in situations where one little mistake can cause the entire team to crumble. That's a lot going on a lot of different people, and it's just a lot on everyone's shoulders.
Yeah, definitely. DBD, I've said this before here. It's a game of seconds where every single second counts, and things go so fast or can change so fast that you need to be paying attention and have good game sense to try to foresee what each situation is going to mean for the rest of the game. And Nervo gets the down on Fancy, so Eruption was active on the street generator, and we did hear another thunder, and that is going to that means that that generator there is close to meeting all the generation events that he can take. So now, like you mentioned, 2 people dead. Oh my gosh! And then the unfortunate skill check when you get off the gen, because they were committing. I think you hear the pistons pumping there, but now with Jinxie and Fancy dead, Nervo is in a commanding spot. So now I don't think we're gonna see any more progress, unfortunately, for in terms of gen completion for the survivors here. And I think Dino was trying to just do that, but I think Nervo is in the lead here now.
Absolutely, going from a 5-stage situation to now a 4K, very well brought back from the killer side here, just forcing them into situations where they have to make these mistakes, or they have to make these decisions, and they might not always make the right one. And in those situations, they're going to slowly lose their advantage. If Nervo gets this down, that's going to be the eruption procking, and now all Nervo has to do is slug Dino and look for finesse. And if finesse gets found here, that's going to be the 4K1 for silence in a situation that honestly could have been below even 6 stages. 5 stages was a very possible reality for a vast majority of this game, and just being able to slowly bring it back into his favor. And now Nervo just needs to find one survivor away from getting that 4K1.
Yeah, and I think towards the end, we'll I guess unless we interview Nervo on his thought process, we won't know. But I feel like his strategy of getting the tags and then going back to the generators, even though Ruin was gone by when one generator was left to go, I think that sloppy was very valuable for Nervo, because survivors did reset, but it took longer than usual for them to be able to recover and then feel confident to jump on generators again. So that bought Nervo a lot of time. Oh wow, that is great.
What a read.
Wow, so Nervo with the read on Ace. Maybe he was able to hear him from the bottom. I don't know. Maybe he has a really good headset, but we'll play it here by Nervo. And that is Finesse's first hook. So now, you know, like you mentioned, now all he has to do is go find Dino, get that hook completed. And that is going to be a 4K1 for Nervo.
Yeah, I don't really see a situation where Dino gets hatched here, and even if Dino bleeds out, all the freshes have been achieved already, so it does not matter. So no matter what here, this is going to be 4K1. And now we kind of have to talk about going into this on the Survivor side of things. Silence is a South American team versus a North American killer. So much like we've seen some of the hits that Nervo's getting through these pallets, they're going to have to deal with the same ping on the other side. So I have seen situations where teams like this will get 4K2'd because their chases will not be long enough to sustain the pressure that the killer can put on. So Silence is probably now talking about how they're going to approach this set, how they're going to play on the ping disadvantage in this next situation and see if they can meet this win con or at least meet this tie con, which I think is very probably going to happen. That is a very probable outcome, is a 4K1 on both sides entering the tie. I would not be surprised if we saw that in the slightest. But you know, both of these teams are very solid, and I wouldn't put it past anyone for like anything could happen at this point, which is I think what makes this this game so exciting. It's just you never know what's going to happen. There's so many things can happen, as we saw in this game. Speaking from, you know, obviously from caster side, we're not the ones playing, we're not under that stress that the players are. But looking from just caster side, we predict like, oh, this is gonna be like 5 stages. Oh, this is gonna be, you know, this is gonna be this is gonna be that, and then seeing the gameplay slowly shift over time because we're not the ones in there, we're not the ones in the comms. We're not the ones actually playing, so we can't make the decisions for them. You know what I mean? So we can talk about what we think is going to happen, but we don't actually know what's going to happen. And I think that's what makes all of this so exciting. So if everyone watching is excited to see how this set plays out, please stick around for the conclusion of the set to see who goes into the winners bracket and who goes into the third place match. So we'll see you all soon for this very exciting deciding match.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to this Grindhouse Slaughter matchup between Silence and Dead Future. We have Finesse playing Killer for Dead Future, and a few minutes ago we saw Nervo played Killer for Silence and was able to get a 4K1. So the win condition for Finesse is 4K2, which is definitely doable for Wraith in this map. But we've seen Silence and Survivors do very well in this map before, so I'm excited to see what they do against Finesse here. And Finesse gets stunned, not able to get that that hit with, you know, cross-ping as well. So we'll see how they do here. I am Robot today, casting alongside Autumn and Nostalgia. Autumn, look in your crystal ball and share with us what you see happening in this match.
Honestly, it's really tough to say from the start. Both sides are honestly not doing so badly. Survivor's not giving an early tag here is really important, although as I say that, it looks like FTS is probably going to get tagged in this moment. Worth noting, no corrupt once again. This is the second, both matches, no corrupt in hand, although this time we are seeing the bamboozle, as you were mentioning, was missing from the last time. Survivors are just trying to waste as much time as they can. Shack Pallet going down very early, much like last game. And now FTS taking chase over here to this weaker filler, although Finesse trying to body block it, not quite able to do it, is going to go around. Very patient drop from FTS, especially considering the ping disparity between the two teams. And that's going to give him back to Shack, and we saw Wagon Pallet as well. Main building gen is going to pop for that, and we do see the greed straight to Wagon Pallet, just like I said. And FTS is now just throwing these pallets. This is looking very similar to how the last game started as well, when Nervo and Fancy were having their little 1v1 in their corner. Very similar, lots of pallets going down, lots of breaking, even some stuns, and just a lot of time waste, and that's exactly what we're seeing on the flip side too. It looks like a pallet being broken here too. Like, these resources are going so quickly, but it looks like this is finally going to be the down under pallet, and I'm highly doubtful that there's anyone here for a pallet save, although maybe they'll surprise me. No one around for the pallet save, and that's gonna be the first down, but this time for 2 generators. So Finesse in a little bit more of a rough spot in compared to what Nervo had. Not gonna use the pain res, as he knows that there's not as much gen pressure to worry about here, and now just has to try to play the gens that they have remaining. But again, their win con is 4K2 and their tie con is 4K1, but at this point, another gen going, I think Finesse just has to play for tie con at this point. I don't think there's any way to 4K. this moment. And I think that the only way that Finesse can meet a tie condition of 4K1 is by going absolutely insane right now and just getting so many tags and so many downs. And we'll have to see if they're able to do that, as we do see one tag coming in to start us off in this little next section of the game here. We do see the unhook happening, and that's gonna be the tunnel onto FTS now, because Finesse knows that if there's any chance of winning or tying this, he needs the tunnel out.
Yeah, the standoff here is is real. Finesse winning, however. And apologies, I was a little lost in my thoughts here earlier with all these pallets dropping and Finesse kicking them, and just thinking to myself, like, like the strategy here a little bit different than what Nervo had. We also have Sloppy as well here for Finesse, but he hasn't had a lot of value here out of it. And now that we are at 2 generators left and not a lot of hook stages, unless we have something like you said, Autumn, like Finesse popping off here and able to recover the same way that Nervo did earlier, it's going to be tough here for Finesse. Like you said, I think Finesse is going to have to play very aggressively here. He's going to have to try to also look at all the progress that these generators have and think of a way that he can get one survivor out as quickly as he can without having to give one more generator. Because even if they reach the situation where they have three survivors left with 1 generator left, depending on how Silence plays it, it can be, it could slip out of his hands fairly quickly.
Yeah, and we see here something that I think is going to be very telling for how this game might go. No tunnel out. They, once again, no tunnel out from this game. They're resetting FDS, and FDS is reset. And it looks like Finesse just wants to play the 3-gen, and it's looking very much like they're wanting to play it kind of like how Nervo played the last game, which it's, again, finding a bunch of survivors in one area. It's looking very similar. We're seeing similarities between these 2 games, and we're seeing it on the flip side now. Chase now hopping onto these 2 injured survivors, and we'll see if Finesse can maybe get some pressure going here, maybe slug, and down. It looks like they're splitting up here, seeing if they can maybe force locker, although it looks like they're just going to be taking their down. That's going to be the eruption proccing on all of those gens, and now we have Boil over upstairs on Dead Dog main. In this room, it could be kind of tricky for Finesse to get a hook, but I think someone's going to need to come in and hit take this. Finesse just dropping straight off, knowing that the progress is not going to be that high from that Boil over. No one here for the hit take, and that's going to be the hook. And the second pain res used, hitting that gen all the way down the street, since we could hear the regression event sound effect happening, so we know that that's the gen that got hit with pain res. Not hearing a lot of progress on all of these generators, but we do have this gen off in the corner and the Gallows gen still. So these gens are pretty split up, and this one does have a lot of progress. It's going to be tricky for Finesse to recover from this position, especially, I was going to say, if he can't find FDS, but finds FDS here, and this could be a turning point of the game if the down happens. And speaking of turning points of the game, it looks like Mariana lost connection very late into the game, which is extremely unfortunate for Silence at this point, because now they're down a survivor that they shouldn't have been down before. And now they have to play a 3v1 all injured. They just did not have enough time to reset and plan and prep for entering the 3v1, because, I mean, you can't predict that something like that's going to happen. And so now Finesse is just going to have to commit to he probably could just go for slugs at this point now, since everyone's injured.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate for Silence. I don't even, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think that Mariana had been hooked before. I don't remember now, but we'll have to go and look at the log. But that is very unfortunate, and we keep hearing the sound cue for the gen regression, and all that progress that Silence had is gone now, and we have 2 survivors left, up, standing, running around, but they're both injured. And given the situation that these survivors are in, I don't see them completing another generator, unfortunately. And Finesse is going to do what we're expecting. It's just gonna lug them and try to call it here. And unfortunately, wow, I can't stress enough like how unfortunate this is. Like Autumn mentioned, this is way too deep into the game, and yeah, that's going to be. I think this is going to be the last chase here on to Nervo.
Yeah. Oh, not quite getting the hit here with the ping and just playing for. I mean, the pallet dropped in. Looks like there's gonna be the down coming in pretty soon. He did pre-bam the window, so they cannot use the window until it is undammed, and that's gonna be the down coming in, and that is every survivor down now. And you gotta feel bad for what just happened in this game. I mean, that disconnect came in so late. I don't even know if there's anything that can be done about it. Obviously, it was not an intentional disconnect, but I don't think at this point in the game there's much that can happen. And Silence, in a very dominant position, looking like they were going to make it to the finals here. One disconnects, and now they can't. It's over, and it's very sad to see situations like that happen. But unfortunately, it's just kind of out of the control of everyone, and you got to feel bad. Both sides did play this very well. I'm not saying that that Dead Future didn't deserve to make finals, because they have played their hearts out for this whole time. It's just very unfortunate to see this matchup that was so close between these two teams end like that.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate on them, and I agree with you. I think both teams played really well, especially this being a high stakes game, which whoever wins, which in this case is going to be Dead Future, is going to move on to the finals. And unfortunately, Silence is going to just play for the third place. Too bad here. We're sorry to see this have to happen, but that is going to be the case. So now Finesse is just looking for FDS. At this point, is inconsequential, of course, because of the win condition, even if he bleeds out. But Finesse did a good job, and we could see Finesse starting to recover. Was able to get everyone tagged at some point. So Sloppy was gonna definitely delay the game a lot. And as we see here, FDS in the middle of the street, understanding, not much that can be done anymore. So no need to continue this matchup. So that is going to be Dead Future with the win. And now we're going to see them in the finals. Silence is going to play the third place game. So stick around, as we have still a lot more to go here in Grindhouse Slaughter today.